Okay, you have by now viewed the video on independent and dependent variables, the kid-friendly version. I tried to pick the uh, easiest example I could find on YouTube, um, but I think we can make it even easier for you. Independent variable and dependent variable, those are just two new names for cause and effect. Independent variable means the cause, dependent variable means the effect. That's all there is to it. Easy, right? So all you have to do is memorize these two new words. Independent means cause, dependent means effect. Now there's more to it than that as you move forward in data analysis, but for the purposes of this course, that's all you need to know, and it makes it a lot easier. Why do we have these complicated terms for something as simple as cause and effect? Because well-educated people have a larger vocabulary and know what this means, but that's all there is to it. Now, when we set up a table with two variables, how do we know which one to put in the rows and which one to put in the columns? Well, there is a rule, there's a convention, and that is that the independent variable goes in the columns, the dependent variable goes in the rows. Let's do an example. I have a hypothesis that women are more concerned with abortion issues than men are. Uh, so let's check it out. I've got a variable, I have a survey question that I know deals with abortion. It's called ABANY. So type ABANY into the selected box up here and click on view, and we can see what question they asked. ABANY, please tell me whether or not you think it should be possible for a pregnant woman to obtain a legal abortion if the woman wants it for any reason. And we've got yes and no are the two possible answers. So click anywhere, click on row, and ABANY pops up in the row box over here. And I'm going to put sex in the column box. Okay, remember our rule. How do we know which goes in the columns and which goes in the rows? Independent variable goes in the columns. That's the rule. I think that sex affects how you answer this abortion question. I think that sex causes your attitudes on abortion. That's my hypothesis. I could be right, it could be wrong, but that's my hypothesis. My hypothesis states that sex is the cause of your attitude on abortion. Therefore, sex is the independent variable. Therefore, sex goes in the columns. Simple rule. Independent variable in the columns, dependent variable in the rows. Causal variable in the columns, dependent variable in the rows. All there is to it. Now we click run the table. Let's see what we get. Nice table. How do we read a table? How do we read a table? There is a rule for this, but first let's look at the table and see what's in the table. These colored boxes here are called cells. Each cell contains two numbers. The bolded number at the top is the percentage, the column percentage. The non-bolded number at the bottom is the N. So this means that of the people who answered this particular survey question, 6,264 were men who said yes. And you might be thinking, wait a minute, there's a fraction of there. How could you have 0.4 of a man? Well, that's due to weighting that is done by the survey makers. That's beyond the scope of this course. Don't worry about it for now, but we'll just say there's probably about 6,264 men who said yes, 8,977 men who said no, and so forth. When we're reading a table, usually we're not concerned about the N. What we're interested in are the percentages. So we'll just look at the bolded numbers at the top of each cell. Rule number 2. What was rule number 1? Rule number 1 was dependent variable goes in the rows, independent variable goes in the columns. Rule number 2, if you have set your table up correctly, the way to read the table is to compare percentages across rows. Or what we're doing here is we're comparing the categories of our independent variable. Or more simply stated, we're comparing men and women. Are men and women different in their abortion attitudes? So we're comparing percentages across rows. And when we do it for this table, we see that there is very little difference between men and women. It's the difference between men and women is insignificant. So I have to conclude that the data do not support my initial hypothesis. Women do not feel differently about this particular abortion question than men do. Okay, from this video, there are 3 things to take. First of all, independent variable is just another word for cause. Dependent variable is just another word for effect. That's all there is to it. When setting up a table, there are 2 main rules. Rule number 1, independent variable goes in the columns, dependent variable goes in the rows. Rule number 2, when we read a table that's been set up correctly, we compare percentages across rows. We read the percentages across rows. That's how you read a table. Easy, right? Nothing to it.